Hello, this is Jer. I'm playing Oxygen Not Included, and I'm in the Moonlet series, just finishing cycle 55, going towards 56. In the last episode, I upgraded my electrical wiring. I now have heavy watt wires everywhere, which means I won't be in a situation of overloading my circuit, which is nice. Not going to be burning away aluminum ore. And I also dealt with the fact that these little hatches consume meat, so they're competing for the same food source that my dupes are going to be eating meat, ultimately going to barbecue meat. So I dealt with, I have auto sweepers in the stable where the hatches are and the incubation area. So I just set the loader, conveyor loader, to take meat out of those rooms so that I won't be in a situation where that is consumed by them. Rather, they'll be consumed by my dupes. In this episode, or at least the start of this episode, it's going to be focused on the stone hatches, because in the last episode I got my first stone hatch egg, and I want to build a separate stable for that. Actually, just before I do, I mentioned I'd do this in the last episode, forgot. I've got 91,000 calories of meat eaten up to this point. That means I have about 309 calories left, 1,000 calories left to eat of meat. And according to my calculation, if I'm eating meat every single cycle with all 8 dupes, 1,000 calories each, I'll be able to get that in approximately 39 cycles. And I've got 45 or so, 44 left. So this is going to be pretty close, but it's in my favor, assuming that I can eat and generate enough meat every single cycle. I'll probably have up to 9 or 10 dupes at that point, anyways, as I get to 100. So I'm looking good for the carnivore achievement. Now I can start to focus on some other things, as long as I make sure that hatching, that incubator is running at full capacity whenever it's possible. So building a very similar stable right next to the hatch stable. This is going to be for the stone hatches. And I like the setup of the hatches a lot more than the ones for the pip, for this very reason. You can compress them to be very close. As long as the room is 96 tiles big, it doesn't matter if the hatches actually have access to the whole room. They only need to have access to that little tiny floor area that has a grooming station, a drop-off station, and a place for food. The big difference here is I'm going to sweep the floor of all material, because I want to force the stone hatches to eat aluminum ore. And the reason for that, that's going to up the chances of them laying smooth hatch eggs. So those stone hatches still have to, will hatch in order for me to be able to put them in this stable. So processing them through the incubator, make sure the stone hatches, as well as any of the other eggs that I have, get the lull by effect, because I need them to be born and ultimately turn to meat in order to be able to consume them as meat and ultimately barbecue meat through the electric grill. So I'm making sure my stable, my future stable for the stone hatches, is exactly 96 tiles. If I make that happen, that means I'll be able to support up to 8 stone hatches within that stable. And that's the same number that I have for the other stable that's right next to it. So I've got that. Now I'm going to put flooring here that this is going to make it so my dupes can run to those 2 stables whenever they want to do grooming. I'm going to do that high priority, so hopefully no pips escape. One has, that's fine. I'll just wrangle them and they'll go up into it. So I've noticed that my stable is way too big. It's in excess of over 100. So I'm going to put a door there to reduce that number and see where I get into. Continuing to process my eggs, because I don't want to be in a situation where I don't have enough food and not making progress towards the carnivore achievement. So I'm at 100 tiles. Right now I want 96, so I just need to remove 4. If I build 2 doors there, that's going to remove it by 4 and make it exactly 96. With the rest of the time, I'm going to make a oxygen filter system without a standard filter. So this is a little bit more energy efficient. I'm going for the super sustainable achievement, so I need to think about ideas of how to do things a little more efficiently. So I'm filtering for oxygen and basically saying if I detect oxygen, put it into the gas reservoir. And then I'm going to have logic on the gas reservoir that says if it's more than 50% full of oxygen, turn the pump off. And as long as the vent for that doesn't become over compressed, this system should work for me. So putting the setting 50-50 on the gas reservoir, that's the thing that's going to turn off the pump when there's that much oxygen in there. And what I'm going to do with the oxygen is feed some masks at the top of my base so my dupes can exit and go into space and do some exploration there without the need of worrying about not being able to breathe in space, because you can't find much oxygen up there. So with that, the rest of the cycle, I'm just going to let them build this, and hopefully in the next cycle or two, I'll start to have some masks available for them to be able to use and walk outside my base. So I'm just a note on where I'm going to put this. I ultimately want to have, let's say, 10 spots. So saving a space for that. I'm only going to build 4 for now, but I want the ability to easily upgrade later on. In the beginning of cycle 58, I discovered the fact that I just didn't have a single hatch that was stuck in the door. I had about 4 or 5, which is good news, because that means I won't have to fill that stable with new hatches so quickly. The reason this happened is because at least when hatches are in confined space, they tend to spend most of their time on the far left or right side of the area they can walk. So just building some air pipes to go into my masks and tiles, so that when the dupes exit the base and put on masks, they can walk out a little bit quicker, and put an automated door there. So as I mentioned, these little hatches were stuck in the door because I built on the left side, which tends to catch more hatches there than if I had built the door in the middle. Anyways, that can be easily fixed by wrangling them, bringing them back over one tile, so that they are back in the stable to produce more hatch eggs. So that's a really good thing. So I'm in a far better situation. Now I'm building 2 batteries here. The battery on the left, the smart battery, is just a regular battery for storing power, but the one on the right is next to a transformer. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to put that through some logic to tell the transformer to only turn on when that second battery needs it. And that is going to be a separate circuit to control the automated door going out of the base. Because if you don't power that door, it'll open a little bit slower, allowing more oxygen and other gases to escape when my dupes are using it. So that is what all that is about. And I'm just having a look around what I'm going to do with the rest of the cycle. I think I'll just spend more time doing some pip egg hugging, because I don't want to run out of food. Run out of meat. I currently don't have any critters running around there, and I only have 4,000 calories of meat at the moment. So I'm going to hope that I'm going to have some new eggs hatch very soon. So I'm telling the masks to be filled, and I don't actually have the mask. You have to create that in a crafting station. So I'm creating one more mask than I actually have, and telling them to create an unlimited supply of worn masks. So anytime that a mask becomes worn, a dupe will automatically renew it and then put it back into one of those mask stations. And they got one spare mask to work with while perhaps one of the masks is out of commission. The other thing is I'm deciding where the exit's going to be. I'm going to have a ladder and fire pole going out of the base. And I want to put that a little bit further away, because I'm going to put a separate system with some water and dip down once I have exosuits. But that's for a later on time once I get there. I don't want to do that just yet, because my dupes will be getting their feet wet if I put that system, and I don't think that's worth it at this time. So here I am choosing the location where ladder is going to go up. This is where they're going to go up into space, and I think the first major project is going to be working with the telescope, and then hopefully installing some solar panels. But I'm going to have to worry about the research for that. The final bit is I'm going to make sure I've got heavy watt power going out so I can power anything that's out there. Okay, I didn't record the first little bit early on in this morning of what's going to be cycle 60, but I had attacked a stone hatch. That's because I needed some calories, but once I realized it was a stone hatch, I canceled that. They were halfway through taking damage before they get to that point. I realized there's another hatchling behind. I can convert them to meat. I'm going to wrangle the stone hatch, and that's going to be the first stone hatch to go into my stone stable. Stone staple, it sounds pretty cool, right? Anyway, what I'm doing in this cycle is other than getting my first stone hatch in there, is building heavy watt wires on top of my base. Because ultimately I'm going to be putting solar panels there, and I figured since I've got the extra time and I'm not quite sure what else to do, I'm going to put those there, and I'm going to have one of my dupes go to the other base, and I'm going to start the research for solar panels as well as glass forge, because I need glass to actually build the solar panels, because I want to start to run more things without having to have dupes on the manual generator, which is the only way to power anything at the moment, other than a little bit of hydrogen that's being generated from the electrolyzers. That's being converted into the hydrogen generator, but everything else comes from one of my dupes on the manual generator. Now, I'm not noticing that it's terribly busy, which is nice, and I've got a lot of free time lately for my dupes to do things. So this is the ideal situation. It just cutting out some tiles there at the top of my base so it's flat, just making it a little bit easier to install the solar panels. But if you're in the situation where your dupes are going idle and looking for things to do, that's my favorite thing. I hate in this game when I'm wanting to do something and I have to wait for my dupes to do the many other things. I think if you've managed things well, if you've gotten to the point where you're having to pause quite often to figure out what you should get your idle dupes to be doing. So despite the fact that I hate to see my dupes idle, I also love to see them idle at the same time. So I'm just going to optimize the top stables for the pips so that when my dupes are running across, they can run a little bit quicker. Okay, so I have Chef trapped. They can't dig the tile that's underneath them, and they can't get down. So I'm going to set that to high priority. And they're low in oxygen, so if someone could engineer was to the rescue. Okay, you've got to watch your dupes when they're in situations. All it takes is 3 tiles up. They can't jump down, for instance, and they could suffocate or starve in the location they're at. Luckily, that didn't happen for Chef. Okay, it is coming up on cycle 60. And I'm looking for things for my dupes to do while Hugger hugs as many eggs as possible. There's currently no pips up there, and I'm back to 0 calories. I'm in this situation where the moment a pip egg can be processed for a lullaby effect, I'm doing that. So checking that many times a cycle in hopes to get a pip to generate a little bit more food. In the meantime, while my dupes are waiting for some food, I'm going to get them to build some heavy watt wires on top of the base. And I'm going to select one of my dupes to go over to the other world. That's going to be scientists. I'm actually going to get, before they go, I'm going to get scientists to activate both teleportation machine. This is both an input and output. Something that I can use to send material to the other world that I can teleport to and receive material. Probably the most important one is the one they're on right now, the receiving end. So I want to receive some wheezy warts and algae from the other world. The wheezy warts is going to be more immediate concern. That's going to help me do some research. We'll see that in a future episode. And the algae is about space travel. So that's a little bit further down the line. So sending scientists on this mission. The reason I'm choosing them is because they're the only ones that will be with field research with ability to, they can't dig through that, and I can't give them any skill points. So they can dig out a single wheezy wart, but that's it. And they can reach the teleporter and they can activate it at least. So I'm going to get a single wheezy wart out of this mission, and I'm going to set that conveyor loader to accept wheezy warts and algae, and make sure that I specify that dupes can operate it. It's not just for automation. All right, while they're doing that, Hugger is doing what they do best, hug all the time, because I still need some of those eggs to hatch in order to feed my population. So specifying wheezy warts and allowing dupes to use that machine. And once that gets plugged in, that should send the first wheezy wart over to that world, and I'll be able to generate some research out of that in the future. Rest of the time, I'm just going to advance this heavy watt wires. My dupes they have a lot of idle time, which is amazing. So the moment I specify something to be built, they're building it really quick. Can't really complain about that. So let's continue that heavy watt wire. So when I ultimately get solar panels, I'll be able to, I won't have to worry about the wiring at that point. In this episode, I built some masks for my dupes to be able to exit the base and operate around there while being able to breathe oxygen. I provided a pump and a little bit of efficient filter to be able to fill those masks. And I also have my first stone hatch in a new stable, and I'm feeding them aluminum ore. That's going to increase the chances of them laying stone hatch eggs, smooth hatch eggs, which I'm going to use to produce metal, refined metal. The third thing is I've added some heavy watt wires the moment that my dupes can operate on top of the base with oxygen, so that ultimately when I produce some solar panels, I'll already have the wires in place. And Scientist is over in the new world that I can teleport to. They've activated the teleportation machines, and they're going to send at least one Wheezy Wart over. And hopefully in the next episode, perhaps the one after, I'll put that towards doing some research for creating some solar panels. Hope to see you in that next episode. If you like the series, like this video, subscribe, and see you later.